Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Profiles in Risk. I am your host, Nick Lamparelli. No better way to end the worst day of the week, Monday, than to have someone on that's going to lighten the mood a little bit, educate us, entertain us a little bit. I'm returning the favor, Adam Painter. Adam is a property claims professional, independent adjuster, and he's host of a podcast, which some of you may have heard me on his, and it's aptly named The Adjuster Show, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this particular episode. Happy Monday, Adam.
Happy Monday to you. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I kick off every single podcast by punting it over to the guest because I find it's a good way to get traction. I don't have to talk too much.
Right.
In your own words, can you describe what you do?
Okay, so no pressure. We'll just see how this goes, and yeah, it'll be fun. So what I do in my own words. It's funny that you mentioned that because not too long ago on Facebook, there's a lot of groups out there, and adjusters have their own groups, and there was a question like, how do you answer the question when someone asks, "What do you do?" Because there's so many aspects to this side of the business. Some people say that they're storm chasers just after the storm already goes, or after the storm has already left. Um, I just say that I go help people with their insurance claims, and help put their lives and their houses and property back together.
Mm-hmm. And your background wasn't claims, though. Your
No,
background was the military.
right.
Can you tell us what you did in the military, and then how did you transition your way over?
Sure. So yes, I was in the military. I was in the Navy for 9 years, and I didn't even know adjusting was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was an EOD tech so that's the acronym.
What's
So
EOD? End of
yep,
day?
pretty much it could be, unfortunately. Explosive ordnance disposal is the job title, but if you still don't know, it's the Hurt Locker. That's what I like to tell people. It's if you've seen the movie The Hurt Locker, then you have a pretty good idea of what I did. Like the bomb squad guys.
Mm-hmm.
So got out of the Navy after 9 years. Had no idea what I was going to do, and so I started training people that were getting ready to go to Afghanistan. So I did that for a year. Then I just wanted to be out of the industry, out of the community, and get back to Texas. And I still didn't know what I was going to do. So I took my Series 7 and became a financial advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely hated it. Behind the desk, I am not a salesman at all. So it just wasn't a good fit for me. I was unhappy. It was causing stress and havoc on the marriage. And somehow I was going to a networking event for that, and my wife struck up a conversation with another wife that was there, and she said that her husband was an adjuster. And as they talked, my wife said, "You know what? My husband would love to do something like that." So we took him to dinner, and we talked, and I asked 1,000 questions, and the next thing you know, I was sitting in the class getting licensed, and then I sat around for 10 months waiting for my first call, which is typical, which is normal. Um,
Okay, well, immediate question that comes up to me is what could you have done to avoided those 10 months? Or are those 10 months kind of, I don't want to say mandatory, but necessary for your career? Explain that.
it's just unknown. I mean, it's all dependent on the weather. If there's no
Oh,
big storms, or it's just dependent. There are a lot of factors. So you have to be on with a firm that has a, a pre they have a contract with the carrier, and all that admin stuff is done before the storm. So you have to be on the right roster with the right firm that is on with the right carrier that is getting claims in a certain area. Now, if those things don't line up, then you're not going to get claims. And if you don't get claims, then you're just sitting around, because if there's no storm, there's no claims, and then we don't work.
how do you get on a roster?
networking, phone calls, emails.
To whom?
Um, well,
What,
there's a
what are
list.
the types of firms that would put you on a roster? When um, I would say I would think that most folks that think of, hey, I'm going to become an adjuster, are automatically thinking I need to connect actually to the insurance company. But
Yep.
there's a layer in between. Can you talk about that for those
Yep.
that might not know?
Yep. There's a layer in between, and it's called the adjusting firm. And there are several dozen out there, each of them with their own unique relationships with different insurance companies. And so, how it all works, so a big storm or a big event happens, and the insurance company gets overwhelmed with claims. And obviously, they don't have the manpower and the staff to deal with the volume of claims that are coming in. So they contract with these adjusting firms that have rosters of independent adjusters, and they can fill the need. So, and that's what it means. That's what I mean by you have to be on the right roster, has a good relationship with the right insurance company, and the insurance company has to get the volume of claims. All of those
Hmm.
things need to line up in order for an independent adjuster to get claims.
What sorts of claims do you adjust?
Everything. Um, you know,
Auto,
no,
property.
so property, houses,
Okay.
dwellings. Um, but when I say anything, I would say, wind, hail, hurricane, fire, flood, all of those things.
Yeah. So for someone that's doing property adjusting, is auto adjusting sort of a distraction, or can it be diversifying in that it could fill in your downtime?
Sure, it can fill in. It's a completely separate entity. It's completely different. It's a different um, rosters. It's different software. It's different carriers. It's completely different
Yep.
career path. I do
Are
know
there adjusters that do both?
there are, but I think they're few and far between.
Okay. Can you talk about the pros and cons of someone, because Chris Stanley is a good friend of ours. He was a
Yep, I was
sponsor
just
of the podcast for a while.
Yep,
So
I
I
was just about
know.
to say, Chris Stanley has a program dedicated to auto, and his program, the way he explains it, that it's a good transition from auto into property. It's a good way to
Okay.
get into the industry and get your feet wet.
Yeah.
I do want to kind of go back and answer your question from a minute ago. How do you get on a roster?
Yeah.
It's really, there are organizations. No one's going to get you on a roster, but if you call the firm directly or email them directly and say, "I need to get on your roster. I'm licensed. These are my qualifications." They're going to get you on the roster because they want you on their roster.
Yeah. Because the more bodies they can throw at a large claim, um, the more money they make. So it probably helps that way.
Well, not so much the more money they make; it's the relationship. It's the building and the keeping the relationship with the
Hmm.
carrier. So if they can fulfill the requirement that the carrier has for them, then that's going to make them shine, make them look better, and perpetuate the relationship.
Yeah. Um, Personal lines, commercial lines.
Yes,
Which do you do?
both.
Okay. Um, what did you start out at?
Personal lines. I
Okay.
think that's the typical new person will come in with limited experience, maybe some construction experience, maybe not, maybe some computer skills, maybe not, maybe they just want to help. And with depending on the right training, then those folks can be just as successful as anyone else.
Yeah.
There's a really low barrier to entry, I
Yeah.
would say. And I think that's one of the problems where quality comes into question.
I see. Yeah. I'm gonna add a blooper reel to this. Hold on. I'm not sure if my mic is picking it up, but my cat's scratching at the door. So if you're watching this or listening to this and I haven't cut this out, that's because I was lazy. But I gotta get rid of that cat. Shut up. Um, okay, so you brought up a good point. With training and experience and the low barrier of entry means there's probably going to be a lot of folks coming in who I need a job, right? And
Yes.
they really don't care. They don't have the same level of passion or dedication that you do or that Chris Stanley does. the folks that we've dealt with. How do you set yourself apart? How can you get on a roster and then shine?
Um, know that you don't know anything, and just be a sponge and learn as much as possible, because it's really the crux of this whole thing is it's mostly on the job training. Yes, there are training programs out there, and they're wonderful. Veteran adjusting school, they're great. Um, Mile High, they're great, but it's you have to take and be able to translate what you're learning in a classroom environment to a real world environment, and not everybody can do that.
Yep.
There's going to be supervisors and managers there on site during the storm that they're going to want to help you, because they're going to want to get these claims closed for the folks that have sustained the damages.
Yep.
So it's really getting plugged into the managers, the supervisors, because every carrier is different, every firm is different, and everybody has their own way of doing things.
Yeah. It seems like, from what I've seen as an outsider looking in, that there's a lot of, and to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like a lot of training is heavily focused on software, specifically Xactmate. Is that the case? Is
Um,
that like a big part of the job, is just understanding how the software works?
yes, it is a very large. It's. I mean, I hate to put a percentage on it, but it's a very large aspect.
And so if there's so how does it work? If a particular roster or a particular carrier, are they the ones that's pushing Xactmate down? Um,
Yes.
okay, so if you're working for, if they're a particular carrier that has a particular type of software that they specialize in, you have to use that software.
Yes. Yes, yeah, that's exactly right, and that's another caveat to this whole thing. Like, if you're on a roster with a firm that has a relationship with a carrier that is using Xactimate, and you don't have any Xactimate training, then you're probably not going to get claims. Whereas if the same scenario and they use Symbility, but you've never used Symbility, then you're not going to get claims.
How many pieces of software do you know?
Probably 3.
The big ones. I call
Yep.
it Xactimate. Now, after you said it, I feel silly saying it that way, because it obviously makes more sense saying it the way you say it. But for some reason, I can't say it because I'm so used to saying Xactimate.
You're not the only one.
Uh,
You probably have the correct pronunciation. I just call it Xactimate.
no, I think, well, if I'm right, yours is better. Because it's supposed
Okay.
to be estimate. So, um, Symbility, and what's the like? Is there a third or a fourth large vendor?
Simsol
Simsol.
would probably be the
I've
third.
I've heard of them.
But yeah, all that stuff is driven by the carrier. The carrier drives everything. What software, how they want their estimates to look, what they're going to allow in the estimates, what they're not going to allow. It's all driven by the carrier, and then
Yeah.
it's the firm's responsibility to push that information out to the adjusters.
So what sort of advantages are there having real world experience coming in to adjusting? If it's just plugging stuff into a software, and you and I talked before this. I have, part of the reason why I'm interviewing you is because I'm curious, but I have self-interest in this, and it just seems like real world experience would be quite valuable for that side of the ledger for insurers. How much is that valued? How much does that experience or know-how to be able to go in and say software is not right on this one?
Um, Probably. So there's two questions there, and two answers. So how much is like real world experience? Let's just say construction experience.
Hmm.
So construction experience is a huge plus, because you have to know what you're looking at, what's damaged, what are the aspects, what is it going to take a contractor to come back in and repair it properly. All of those things are just line items in the estimate that need to be included. Whereas someone that doesn't know construction, they're not going to know what the material is called. They're not going to know how it's properly installed, and they're not going to know just the general makeup of the construction of the house or the
Yep.
building.
Yep.
Um, and then you also said, can you look at the system? Can you look at Xactimate and say that Xactimate is wrong? That's probably unlikely. That's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because
But
Xactimate is,
with real world experience, you'll know better the inputs to put into the software.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I mean, I could throw a dozen, construction materials out there, and each of those are line items in Xactimate or,
Yeah.
the software.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the difference between commercial and personal lines? What are types of things that kind of separate those two, or I mean, compare and contrast?
There's really not much difference in the field. It's not. It's just, I like to say, it's just wood, metal, and drywall. Don't try not to overcomplicate it. It's just a metal building and different fixtures, but it's still just metal, drywall, and wood.
Yeah.
Um, I guess the difference would be the policy. There's different endorsements, exclusions. Um, obviously the policy might be a little bit bigger on a commercial property or a commercial loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those sorts of things.
How about when the commercial buildings tend to deviate from traditional types of structures to something like, factory with like specialized equipment, something that's just out of the ordinary from the traditional types of, hey, drywall, steel, now
Right.
there's like, oh, this is a special type of glass. This is a special type of, whatever. Um, have you dealt with those, and how does someone uh, continue their training, their education, so that they can begin tackling harder and harder types of adjustment?
Sure. So in those types of scenarios, you're really going to get an expert. You can't really expect, your average field adjuster to know the ins and outs of some special equipment in some factory. So you're going to get an engineer. You're going to get, as much information as you can. Someone to put a price on what it's going to take to repair it or replace it, and then you're going to put that number into the system.
Mm-hmm. Um, what's the future for adjusting look like? So you hear lots of things about like AI, machine learning, chatbots. I'm guessing there are probably a lot of tech folks that are thinking like Adam Painter, we can carve a lot of what he does out and sort of simplify it by just having the homeowner walk around with their mobile camera. Um, Talk about that. The pros and cons of technology coming in and how you expect it to infiltrate your life, your employment.
You're exactly right. You're absolutely 100% correct. Things are changing. And that's one of the reasons I started my podcast, is because I wanted to find out what's going on in the industry. Because from my perspective, if something bad is going to happen, if my job is going to disappear, it's my job and my responsibility to be prepared. So I want to know what's going on or what's coming out. And I think it is coming. I think there are going to be some massive changes in the industry.
Hmm.
I see within, 5 and 10 years, the field adjuster might be extinct. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems to be moving to where everything can be done behind the desk.
Would it be a situation where the field adjuster just moves behind the desk and they just sort of become the I don't know, interpreter of the video, the interpreter of those things versus actually boots on the ground?
Yes, yes, I can see that. That I personally see that happening more than anything else.
Yeah, no, that makes it seems like it's going in that direction. It's hard to tell.
It does. It's early, I think, but I think that the field adjuster is the weak link in the whole claims settlement process. Um, and I think they're going to be phased out first. And it could be moving them to the desk to interpret, like you said, what the screen or what the, inspector is saying or anything. But yeah, I think things are changing, but I think we're still, 3, 5, 10 years out.
Okay, so let's brainstorm. You and I.
Okay.
Let's save your job. I guess if I were in those shoes, I'd start thinking, okay, well, how do I diversify out of that problem? Can I diversify out of that problem? Can a property field adjuster learn how to do, let's say, can they learn how to do inspections to tack on to adjusting? Because it's somewhat similar. You have to go around, you almost have to look for potential problems before they arise, before the actual claim happens. So is that a possibility?
What do you mean by inspectors? Do you
Like
mean like the
loss control, like working for an insurance company to go out to a property to inspect potential loss before it happens.
yes, so pre-loss evaluation of the
Yep.
property. Yes, I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, that's a viable option. Um, like I said, I don't think that the adjuster is going away. Just the field adjuster. I just think people think. I think this is just my personal opinion that things are going to be moving behind the desk. So, knowing the different softwares, Symbility, Xactimate, SimSol, whatever the carrier requires, there's still going to be there's still going to be a need to generate an estimate for the contractor, because at the end of the day, this person's house is still going to have to get rebuilt, and there's going to be a contractor on the ground that's shipping in drywall and actually putting nails in the wall and putting this thing back together.
Yeah. There's also a choke point as well, even post adjustment, right? In catastrophe prone areas where there's the possibility that you can't even get a contractor out, right? Like you can do the estimate. So how does that change how you do your job? If like let's just say hurricane, that's probably going to create the widest swath of problems.
Sure.
How does that change what you do, knowing that I'm going to be providing this estimate, and it could be months before someone can actually start working on this? The numbers could
Sure.
change, right?
Sure, absolutely. And with the software that we use, like Xactimate or whatever, they come out with the price list updates generated by zip code every month. So it's not necessarily a pricing thing. It's a mitigation of the damages thing. It's a getting on the contractor's schedule thing. So if in the real world scenario, a hurricane comes, and more than likely everybody's moving into that area, adjusters,
Hmm.
contractors, everybody's moving in, emergency personnel, and we're starting to get the work in our inboxes, and we're starting to make appointments and inspections and find out the extent of the damages. So the adjuster's going to go out there, he's going to write up his report, submit it back through the firm to the carrier, and then the contractor is going to come in behind him. He's going to say, this is not enough. There's more damage than what the adjuster assessed. I got into the wall, and I understand you couldn't see it, but we're going to need to repair this, and so that just delays the whole process. It's called a supplement, and that's another industry that I see really growing in this whole thing with the introduction of AI and that sort of thing. There's going to be a ton of supplements coming in.
How
That,
so? Explain. Like, what will the AI be doing in terms of what specifically is the problem, and what will AI be doing to sort of massage through that?
well, I guess I should probably qualify this. What AI are we talking about? Give me an example of an AI feature that will replace an adjuster, and I will give you the fallout on the back end.
So an app gets sent to a homeowner after an event.
Hmm.
Homeowner downloads the app, and the app walks them around the house, takes video, and then there's computer software that's scanning the video and just saying, that's damage. That's I see water there, um, and it's going to cost $25,000 to fix that.
Right. So then the contractor comes in a month later or 2 months later, whenever he can finally get that property on their schedule. And what wasn't assessed initially by the AI is now exacerbated because it's been sitting there for 2 months.
Hmm.
Um, so the contractor is going to have to go back to, because it was all storm related, the contractor is going to have to go back to the insurance company and say, either we need another inspection or you just need to bump up your pricing and materials and
Hmm.
estimate.
So is there an opportunity? So is part of the opportunity to reduce the number of supplements, like doing a better job, or some sort of estimate or monetary payment that kind of takes that into account? What can be done so that, what do you think could be done?
I
Um,
think, honestly, I think there could be more done on the pre-loss side. You know, the adage, an ounce of, prevention prevents a pound
hmm
of cure, or
hmm
something like that. Um, I think a little more time on the pre-loss inspection side to get more data for underwriting. That information can be shared or could be shared with the claim side in the event of a loss.
It's so interesting that you brought up claims and underwriting in the same sentence. I'm actually giving a
I think
workshop
that's
at Insurance Nexus conference on claims and underwriting talking to one another and trying to build a workshop around what they can do to help, because it's I've never understood as someone being in underwriting how little they talk to claims.
right. Right. And I don't know that much about it, but I've heard that same, notion echoed a few times. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity for a lot of people, just to bridge the gap between underwriting and claims. And the more data, from my perspective, from the outside looking in, knowing nothing about underwriting, it seems to be data driven to spit out a price at the
Yep.
end.
Do you think underwriters would become better underwriters if they actually got even a modicum amount of training as an adjuster?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I think the underwriting department would be better suited with more information. And if they knew exactly the footprint of the house, of what materials and what grade, and potentially even a pre-generated estimate of complete replacement cost. If that was shared with underwriting, they would have more information to give a price, and that information could be shared with the claims department in the event of a loss to say, okay, in the third bedroom on this, there was baseboards and drywall that was damaged, and that could be done at any time, even if the contractor came back and said, we're going to need more drywall, or we're going to need whatever. Then that could be done at the desk in real time, rather than sending someone back out there or playing phone tag and here's my revised estimate, and that's too low, and just the back and forth between the contractor and the insurance company.
You're getting the wheels moving in my brain right now because I'm thinking of all of the all of the different areas where they could communicate in a way where it's at a much more sophisticated, right, than what they normally do. Like, for example, the pricing itself was based off of some sort of expected loss. Like, we're
Right.
expecting some sort of claims. Well,
Right.
there should be some model that's saying, well, we would have expected for this kind of storm for properties in this area to have an average of this sort of claim, and then tie it back to adjusters reports. And if there's a massive deviation, to try to figure out, well, what was that deviation? What did we
Yes.
get wrong in our model
Yes.
that the adjusters had to then fix, both on the low side and the on the high side? Because if the adjusters are coming in at inflated prices, that's just as bad as if the the adjusters coming in at lower prices
Right.
to fix, because the lower prices meant there could have been an opportunity to charge less for your premium and get more business.
Sure. Sure.
So
I yes, absolutely.
yeah,
I mean, I think there's going to be a time, or there should be a time, when all of this data about a property can be gathered on the front end and then handled in a claim scenario on the back end.
yeah,
All from the same data that was captured in the beginning.
yeah. Do you have any interesting war stories? Anything that sort of sticks? Any events that just sort of stick out as memorable? It could be either good or bad.
Are you talking about as adjusting, or are you talking
Yeah.
about actual war stories?
Oh, well, that's right. You're a military guy. Uh, let's skip the morbid real war stories because that's a
Okay.
real war. I
Okay.
apologize.
Okay. Yep.
But
That's
maybe over a beer we'll share those
sure.
together.
Sure.
But on the adjusting side, any actual events that sort of stick out?
Um, Nothing that really sticks out on the bad side. A few things that stick out on the good side. I when I get the call to go to work, and that this is another scenario that a lot of people don't realize, that once you get the call, or once you get deployed, or once claims start coming in, and your firm calls you and says, "Hey, we have claims. Are you available?" Then you're expected to be there within 48 or 72 hours, which means you practically have to have a bag packed and ready to walk out the door,
Hmm.
kiss the wife, the babies, and get to work. Um,
So it is kind of like war.
well, it's
You got to leave.
you got to
You're not
leave.
not coming back for a while. Okay.
Right, right. It is like that.
Yeah. And you're either staying in like a hotel like you are now, or could it even be like a mobile home? Um,
Sure. A lot of people
but
do the RV thing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I can't get my wife to pull the trigger on the RV thing.
You're in Texas, right?
I'm in Texas. I'm in
Okay, so
Texas.
were you deployed during Harvey?
Yes, I did Harvey and Irma back to back.
Okay, so walk us through that. I mean, that's pretty stressful because that's one hurricane season.
Right.
That is Florida is not right down the street from you,
No.
and the whole west coast of Florida was affected by that. So there are all sorts of things that you need to take into consideration. Um, where am I going to sleep, and what am I going to eat, and how, and yeah, I've been through that some of those areas, and there's debris everywhere. Like, how do I even get to the property? How do I even reach the property owner and make an appointment to go see them? Talk us through like what it was
Sure.
like to go through that.
Sure. If that's the kind of war stories you want, I mean, yes, I can talk about that stuff for days. So you have to imagine a scenario where, the storm comes in and, causes all the damages to the property owners, and they're filing claims. So the claims are coming in, which deploys another few thousand people into the area. How quickly do you think those hotels are going to be quick? Or
Oh,
how quickly do you think those hotels are going to be booked up?
uh, uh, before the
And,
storm,
and to what radius? I mean,
I would say the prices are going to start going up before the storm hits. People are
yes,
going to anticipate.
yes,
So $150 room is probably going to be $500, $600 a night.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Um,
I'm guessing you don't want to get too close to the storm. Um, so probably like 20 miles, give or take
um,
50 miles.
50 miles will probably be closer after the storm. There's just everything shuts down. Everything is damaged. There's no infrastructure. After Michael, it took, first there was no fuel, no gasoline within 30 miles, 40 miles of, Panama City. Um, so you have to, these are all just logistics that you have to figure out while you're on the road trying to get there within your 48-hour, 72-hour deadline.
So
Because
what kind of technology do you have to help you with that? Is it
just a cell phone.
I'm imagining you like pulling over, pulling your map out on the hood of your car. I'm here. Okay. I'm gonna putting a circle around something saying, okay, I need to get over here somehow.
Yes, yes. How any
Okay.
means
That's
necessary.
romantic.
Any means necessary. I mean, it's. I think Verizon and AT&T, they were shut down, so there was no cellular
Cell
service.
service. Yeah.
Um, there were so I think I don't know, Sprint or T-Mobile or some other ones had sketchy service. So people were going to the nearest Walmart and getting we call them burner phones, so we can just pull up Google Maps or Waze and get around town and find the nearest gas station so we can fill up for a couple of days. And I mean, it's a logistical nightmare.
Hmm.
And then once you finally get there, you know, the people that live there, the people that sustain the damage, they don't have internet. They may or may not have a phone. If they don't, if they weren't able to get to Walmart, they have their phone, which is probably run out of batteries by now. So how can you set up appointment? How can you get in touch with them? How do you even verify that they're okay? It's just um, that's the life we live.
Hmm.
We're out there on the ground.
Would you do any? What would you change?
Oh man, that's that's a tough one because so it took me. I didn't realize this was a thing when I first got started. So I jumped in with both feet, and then I sat around for 10 months. Um, I would suggest not quitting your job. I didn't do that, but I would suggest not quitting your job until you have some claims in hand and being deployed. Um, I would recommend as much exactment and stability training as you can get. I know that's what everyone says, and everyone says it because it's the truth. I mean, if you can learn those two systems, then you can set yourself apart. And don't say no. Don't say no in the first year or two or five,
Mm, interesting.
because we're all
Um,
we're all 1099 contractors.
yeah,
So we
yeah,
have the option to say no if we don't want to be deployed. The hard thing is that if you say no when someone else says yes, they're already building a reputation of someone that will go to work and
yeah,
turn in claims. So
yeah,
and you're already building the reputation of someone that's going to say no.
yeah. Understood. Understood. Um, why'd you? I think you had mentioned why you started the podcast. If you didn't, could you mention it again?
Yeah, because I'm curious. I am curious. If something bad is going to happen or if my job is going to get phased out, it's my responsibility to prepare
That's right.
myself to take care of my family. And I want to know what's going on out there. I want to know what players are coming, what technology is coming, who's going to try to force me out of a job. I know there are companies out there and their sole purpose in existence is to force the field adjuster out of a job.
Hmm.
So I need to see who they are, what they're doing, what technology they're using. Um, and if I can pivot and work with what they're doing, then that's better for me.
Yep. Because I would have sworn you got into podcasting because of that voice.
Nope.
It's
No.
good. It's really good. It's really good.
Well, I'm glad
Um,
you think so.
yeah, and you clearly have figured it out because you got the equipment, which even I don't have. Although I have a microphone around here somewhere, but I could never get it to work right. So you've nailed that part down, which is the mic in front of the face and looking like a professional broadcaster.
Well, I've been watching a lot of your videos.
You don't want to do that. You don't want
I'm already doing it. It's already happening.
to do.
I'm trying to learn. I'm trying
Um,
to figure this thing out too. So yeah, that's a whole other thing. Just
yeah.
learning something new. The podcast thing.
Yep.
I'm usually a pretty quiet and reserved guy, and I just decided to start talking.
Yeah. For the audience sake, I've probably mentioned it a bunch of times on my podcast. What's it like having a podcast? Talk about. Uh, talk, for me, it was just like, oh, how hard could it be? And then you get in, and it's just like, it's like another job.
It is like another job.
Talk about how difficult it is.
It is difficult. I mean, it's like it's anything else. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. It's what kind of microphone is gonna work. I mean, how can I travel? Am I going to be able to do this on the road? If you have a job or like myself, I'm always on the road. Can I throw this stuff in a backpack? But it's doing the research, which I love, on someone and trying to find a guest and someone willing to do it and coordinating schedules and learning about this person or these people and these companies. That's the fun part for me. I guess the difficult part would be the editing and the
Yeah.
and
What do you use?
Audacity.
Okay.
What do you use?
That's I use GarageBand.
You're
I
an
have a
Apple
Mac.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I did download Audacity. Audacity was too good. It was more professional than I needed it to be. And um, to quote Forrest Gump, I am not a smart man. And so I was just like confused. And for me, software has to be simple. I have a vision of how it should work and what I want to do. And I need to take baby steps when it comes to software. I just can't jump in. So GarageBand foot the bill. It's funny because when I went to video, I thought, well, Apple makes iMovie. It should be the same thing. And
Right.
to this day, I still have not figured that thing out. Like I still like why I'm putting the media here. Why can't I bring it over here? And where are my scissors to cut the like I just can't figure it out. So I had to find a whole other piece of software. But um, I told someone a couple weeks ago that for every 1 minute of audio, it takes me about 5 minutes to edit. And
Yes.
their jaws dropped. They're like, "What?" Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So the first few episodes where we were editing took forever. Took hours and hours and hours because I didn't know what I was doing,
Right.
so I kept screwing up. But secondly, there was a lot of stuff to process, and
Sure.
I don't think what people don't understand is like even when I say and I can clearly see it in the audio file, and I can clearly clip it out,
Right.
right? So I can boot that
Yep.
piece out and then
Yeah.
stitch and splice together the remaining pieces. I then have to go back and listen to it again to make sure that it was smooth,
Yes.
that I didn't add some other form of awkwardness
Yes.
to it. And it took months for me to get on a rhythm, and it gets much harder where your ums and your stutters go right into somewhat, your words, and you can't
Yes.
quite clip it right, and you can tell someone's editing it. And
Right.
that, I have so much more respect for people that in the biz that do that sort of thing. Curtis Goldsboro's been helping me with mine, and it's like, dude, like
Yeah.
you're awesome. Like I can never, I'm just not that good. I just can't do that. But I got to the point where I could only do like 10 minutes of audio. I would only do the first 10 minutes and then like I'm done because I can't spend hours and hours and hours editing a 45-minute clip.
Right. Right. And
You
that's what
know?
it takes. I mean, because people do this for a living. You
Yeah.
know, the the audio and visual and editing, and that's somebody's career full time.
Yep. And I could
It's
see
hard.
why.
Sure. It's hard to just kind of jump in and say I'm going to start a podcast or
Yeah.
a video, YouTube channel
Yeah.
and expect to
So
just learn that stuff on the fly and be good at it.
yeah. So at some point, I think when we transitioned and we started doing every single one of these recordings and we started putting them on video, at some point I just gave up, and it's just like unless there's like an F-bomb or I just recorded one last week where I got choked up in the middle, not from like sympathy or anything romantic, like I was choking, and I might forget to like chop that off, but that's what only thing I was doing was if someone said, "Hey, can you clean that up?" I would clean it. Otherwise, it
Right.
is what it is, and I'm
Right.
done
Right.
because I got to do the video and the audio, and my Sunday evenings were a disaster. My
Right.
wife would want to watch a show or go to the movies. It's like I gotta upload this video and audio. I don't have
Right.
time to do that.
Right.
So, uh, congrats on the podcast. I want to transition
Thanks.
over. Well, I respect your time. Ask you a couple of personal questions outside of
I
adjusting.
have all day.
The first one is how long, and everyone watching this video has got to be asking the same question. How long did it take you to grow that beard?
Oh, it's nothing. It's like 3 or 4 months.
That's it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been trimming it for a year. Yeah. I, I'm starting to lose it on my head and it just seems to be coming out of my chin. It's an amazing thing. So really,
Good for
like
you.
3 or 4 months. It's funny because I never had a beard until 2017. And I, I,
So
w-
why? Why'd you do it?
yeah, so I went and walked or I hiked the Appalachian Trail,
Yeah,
from,
the whole thing.
The whole thing from Georgia to Maine. And so obviously I wasn't going to shave when I was out on the trail. And I walked back, I got back home and my wife looked at me, she said, "I love it." And that was, I, so I
That's all
kept
you
it.
needed to hear.
That's all I needed to hear. So that
Oh,
was
it's
it.
fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I could never pull that off. First of all, when I get to like a centimeter, it gets so freaking itchy. Does yours get itchy?
Yeah, it goes away though. I mean, there's lotion and like oils and yeah, there's products out there for
Yeah,
the itchiness, but
mine goes crazy.
it only lasts for 2 or 3 weeks. So if you can push through that 2 or 3
Uh,
weeks, then this is what you get.
Yeah, I like it. It looks fantastic, and mine's all splotchy too. So yours came
Oh
in
yeah.
nice and even. Mine would be I'd look like a goat probably with one long strand and like splotches here or there. So uh,
Yeah, but
that
you have that, head of hair, so it all evens out.
was losing quickly. I don't think the good Lord's going to be as good and push the hair out to my beard as well as it did for yours. Um, you label yourself as an efficiency nerd. Can you explain what that means? And that obviously leads to my personal question I ask all my guests are, what do you do? How do you do it? Like what tools, what techniques do you use? How do you be efficient? How do you be productive?
Yeah, so I guess that all started, not too long ago. A buddy of mine that I was in the Navy with, I'm always sending him emails and saying, and I brought him into adjusting. He's an adjuster too, and I'm always like shooting him text and emails like, "Hey, I figured out how to do this. If you want to get faster with this, do this." And so he said, "What are you? Some kind of efficiency geek nerd? Like, why are you always coming up with shortcuts and trying to find the secrets?" I was like, I don't know. I guess that's just my thing. I analyze and think about it, and if something takes me 10 minutes, I want to figure out how it's going to take me 9 minutes. And if I can capture or condense all this stuff into a short amount of time, then I can be faster and I can be more efficient. I can get more things done, and which is the name of the game in the adjusting world. It's a quality product quickly.
Yep.
What can you do?
Well, what do you have any tools or techniques beyond just like you're curious and you want to just try to tinker and make something faster and more efficient? Is there any technology out there or any particular methods that you use that you find are, better than others?
I mean, there are books about efficiency out there, and there are tips and life hacks and tricks and things like this. I can tell you what I do, and some people do it, and some people don't, and some people think that I'm crazy, and that's fine. But I measure everything. When I first started or when I first became an adjuster, I measured everything. If it took me, I would sit there on my desk with the stopwatch trying to figure out how long it took me to write the estimate and label the photos and
Mm,
perform the inspection and you know get my ladder out of my car and all sorts of things. I would measure it, and then what was taking me the most amount of time, I try to whittle it down and try to get faster and more efficient. And like if I put it here, or if I did this, and if I put my camera over here, then I could be a little bit faster. Secondly, I get up at 4:30 every morning.
mhm.
So while the rest of the world is asleep, sometimes 4. So while everybody else is asleep, I get 2 or 3 solid hours of just uninterrupted work time. So I can plan my day. I can kind of ease into my day, which is what I like to do. Have a cup of coffee, and I'll sit down on the computer and I'll figure out what I'm going to do. And I that's my time to read. That's my time to kind of get caught up on me, and then I just go to work.
Okay. What time do you go to bed?
Roughly around 10, 9:30, 10 o'clock.
So you can function on 6 hours, 6.5 hours.
Easily. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
My wife is completely opposite. She's a night owl. She'll stay up till 3 or 4. Sometimes we give each other high fives as she's coming to bed and I'm getting up. So I mean, it's just we
Whatever
just make it.
works.
We make it work. It works for us. We're happy. But she's a night owl, so sometimes she wants to stay out a little later, and I do, and we hang out. Then I'm
And
up at
then so then on those the next mornings on after hanging out with your wife, you wake up at 5, right? You give yourself a
no
little extra
four
sleep.
thirty, four
Always?
thirty, four
Okay.
thirty,
Okay.
4:30 sleeping in. 4 o'clock is normal time.
Wow. Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I'm on those
I'm
on those
impressed.
days. I may have an extra cup of coffee though.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm impressed. I'm guessing your military background is part and parcel of that, probably. Or
Probably, yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, just some of those habits, they die hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the final question is, what books have been influential in your business and or personal lives?
um, I knew you were going to ask this question, so I did a little research. Like, I just scrolled back through my Audible account to find out, some of the books that jumped out. And back in the very beginning, I don't know what year it came out, but as I was kind of getting into this whole work thing and trying to be more efficient and trying to figure things out, it all started with probably hundreds of thousands of other people with like the 4 hour work week,
Mhm.
or anything by Tim Ferriss. Um, and then I hiked the trail and I listened to, anything Vince Flynn. And let's see, let me look at my list. My last book was The F It List by
The
Eric
effort,
Byrne. F
the
It. I didn't.
effort.
I don't want to curse. The Screw It List.
Oh, the effort. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And if you just want a book to enjoy, The Boys in the Boat. It's an excellent one.
Love it. This is why I asked those questions.
Well, I hope I gave you some good answers.
Yeah, you did. Adam Painter, thank you so much. Sorry I grilled you, but someone had to do it. We have to learn this in 2019. Insurance nerds. It's the year of claims. That's
You said it.
we threw the gauntlet down. We have to learn more, and there are people out there that want to learn more. So you were just the medicine we needed for that. So thank you for helping us, expose a little bit about the industry and adjusting that we may not have already known.
Yeah, no problem. Nick.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me. This has really been fun. I hope I gave you what you wanted, what you needed. Hope
you
everybody's
did.
happy. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Yeah. So my guest this week has been Adam Painter. Thanks again.